When I toured with Thy Art, I was um out of practice, to say the least. Like when I toured with them early 2016, and I didn't know all their songs. I wasn't very comfortable with that. I barely knew those guys, and I flew out to Germany to tour with them. And I was so afraid I was going to blow my voice out or lose my voice, and it was easy.
Mm-hmm.
Second tour I did with them was even easier because I knew them at that point. I was familiar with the songs. It was great. And then when I toured with them in 2019 with Architects,
Again.
OG Architects.
They were using in-ear setups for the first time that I had used them. I guess since I was singing with them, like we just had like live sets before. And so I had these like stock in-ears, and they wouldn't stay in my ears, and then there was zero stage sound.
No, because
and
of
so
it,
I completely blew my voice out the first night, and it was like a pretty long set that we played. Blew my voice out. Had like the hardest time then recovering the rest of the tour, but it was like okay, it was like manageable. But the entire time that I toured with them, then it was just like it was the worst because it was like struggling with like my voice being jacked up from the first show and trying to recover while playing more shows, and then not being able to hear myself and with shitty in ears. So it was brutal. There was one night when I think it was like on the second tour that I did with Thy Art, where we partied very hard the night before, and to the point where like I couldn't sit up straight until like maybe 10 minutes before we were supposed to start our set. It was that bad. And I mean, on this tour, there was also many nights where I went on stage pretty much blackout drunk, wouldn't remember the words to the first song. We partied very hard on this tour, but this specific night was in Poland, and it was freezing cold. I was like not wearing a shirt, just laying on cold concrete, just trying to like revitalize myself any way I could. I jumped in the shower right before we started, walked on stage, and had just like zero energy. It was just like a walking corpse on stage. Meanwhile, Marshy was like blackout drunk this night. Like, I love you, man. I'm so happy, we're across the world and we get to do this together. And he's like hugging me and like bumping me with his guitar and trying to push me off stage and just like wasted. Meanwhile, I'm like, I can barely stand up and I'm trying to like sing this band's songs. Insane.
Wow.
People in Poland were probably like, this guy is a fucking asshole. This band sucks.
How were the? I mean, how do you get that initial call to do it the first time to do Thy Art? Because I know it was like some of it was last minute, some of it wasn't. Like, what was the initial link up with Thy Art? Had you toured with them previously? No, right?
No, we played a show with them randomly in New Jersey on a tour that we were on. I think they were in the studio with Will Putney, and they jumped on the show and played with us.
They played like I think they played like 3 shows like around there while they were in the studio.
Maybe. And we like, shook hands with them, met them, but didn't really like talk much or like, get to know them or anything. And then they came to Vegas for Extreme Thing one year. And I think some of the members from Molotov had actually joined Fit for an Autopsy, and they were like, Thy Art's here, they want to like hang out with you. And they like got me backstage, and I hung out with them a little bit that day, but still like didn't really talk much, didn't get to know them like a ton either. And then, just I guess a few months later, maybe a year later, whatever it was, Marshy like DM'd me on Facebook, and he was like, hi. And I'm like, hello. And he's like, I can't even remember. Like, I'm sure I could scroll back through our conversation, but it was like, are you busy in December? It was like, just like such an odd conversation. And I was like, and eventually he was like, we don't have a singer. Do you want to sing for us? And I was like, sure. And just ended up working out that I was on like a work trip in Florida at the time. And I basically, with like, it was like not even 3 weeks notice, got on a plane and flew to Germany and started that with them.
Right. Cause it wasn't even like it wasn't a location based thing. It wasn't like, hey, we need someone for the US, cause you were flying out for a Euro.
Yeah. I don't know if I was their first choice. I think Marshy would probably tell you I was, but I don't know if that's, I,
Mhm.
I'll take his word for it and say that I was their first choice, but who knows?
Well,
But
most people are busy, right? Like I think
yeah,
to me, the way I saw it was kind of like, hey, this guy's not doing Molotov anymore, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
so you're like free, you're freed up, whereas most
right.
people have got they're touring, they're writing records, they're doing these
Other
other things. So
bands.
yeah, so someone who has touring experience and knows how it goes, and the you know, touring experience is everything for those. Like Dara didn't want to pick some random nobody that's never toured before to go do their
Right.
Euro with Parkway Drive and Architects, you know.
And at
It's
this
kind
point
of
too, you have a track record. You've been on tour. You
yeah,
can last through a tour. You have
yeah.
recorded songs. I think, yeah, I think
The
that
pool
makes
is
it
small.
easy.
Pool
And
is small of people that could do it.
I don't want to go into it, but I've also been asked to sing for just about every notable deathcore band that lost a singer somewhere along the way.
Yeah, yeah,
So you could take your pick, but with thy art, it was like if I wanted to join and tour full time in a deathcore band, it would have been with thy art.
yeah.
Like those are the I love those guys all so much. And after just doing like the first tour that I did with them, I was like, it makes it really hard for me to not want to be in a band with you guys, but I really just don't want to tour full time. But I ended up basically flying out from Florida to Germany, not really knowing these guys, like have met them a couple times, but like don't know them.
Yeah.
Land at like 4 a.m., 3 or 4 a.m. in Germany. Don't know where anything is, where I'm going. I'm meeting their tour manager at the airport. He's German. Finally find him, get picked up by him. He takes me to like the hostel or hotel that they're staying at, and they're all in one room. So it was a room like not much bigger than I'm in probably like a 10 by 12 room right now, 10 foot
Okay.
by 12 foot room right now. And it probably wasn't much bigger than this, but there were like bunk beds and like beds next to each other, and everyone's asleep. It's still dark outside. And Chris is like, go lay over there by Sean. That's your spot in bed. And it was literally like a queen size bed with like an already, Sean's a big guy. He's like 6'2", maybe, like big dude, 200 pounds, probably 200 pounds or a little under.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay. And I have like my headphones in and I'm like listening to their songs and I'm like trying to not disturb Sean and still trying to like, you know, like drill these things into my brain so that I don't screw them up, because in like 2 days we're playing a sold out show to 4,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just insane. Like, I don't want to call it a nightmare, but like very surreal moment, even for somebody that had toured like as extensively as I had, just kind of showing up, not knowing anybody, having to rip through these songs. And then immediately starting off, first show was like 4,000 people.
Yeah.
Second show
Doing
was
the
like
biggest shows you've
6,000
done
people.
ever.
Yeah, it was insane. Parkway Drive tour, like wild. Anyway.
Parkway Drive, yeah, I love. Parker Drive was killing it. You know what I mean? Like we keep talking about that era of just like heavy metalcore, but
Yeah.
like awesome. And Parkway Drive is up there to me. Like I mean, like still now I listen to these records from back then. They were and especially live. Don't want to talk too much about them, but like
Yeah.
just seeing them perform and seeing, you know, the vocalist Winston, like he has a smile the entire time. They're running across stage and stuff. Like one of the best bands I've seen, you know, energy wise and vibe and everything live. They're crazy. You know, it's been a while since last time I saw them live, but they were just like freaking killing it. I just wanted to say it.
I have to say, so that tour was Parkway Drive, Architects, Thy Art Is Murder, and it was
It's an
all
insane lineup.
it was
Dude.
all
At that
Australians and all British people. Basically, there were a few one-offs here and there. Like Chris was German, I was American. Chops, the guitar tech for Thy Art, was American. Him and I were the only two Americans on the entire tour,
Mhm.
and so it was very much like a out of my element, but like kind of loving every minute of it. I like click super hard with Australian people anyway, so it made it even easier for me to sing with Thy Art. But all we did all day on that tour was play ping pong. And it was the Thy Art guys and the Parkway Drive guys, and all we did all day long, just table tennis, ping pong, back and forth all day, like aggressive. Like most people that don't play ping pong will look at it and go, holy shit, these guys are like professional ping pong players. You know, we would have like heated games, and they were just so chill. My sleep paralysis demon, but they were just like so chill, so like easy going, and you wouldn't expect it because they're just in like one of the biggest metal bands on the planet Earth, and they're just the
Yeah.
nicest guys.
No
Love to
diva
like
shit. Like,
no diva shit. Like we'd all go out for drinks afterward. Everyone was just very, very cool, super laid back. It was awesome.
That's the vibe too, you know, like
Yeah.
that's kind of what you want. Also, you keep great memories and stuff like that, because you mentioned, when you mentioned earlier, you said like everybody in that band hated me and stuff like that. Like there was a moment in time, no, for real, that like it was kind of, there was a lot of like, I'm cool type of guy,
Yeah.
you know, and this, you know what I mean? Like I'm not talking to this band or that person or
Yeah.
whatever, like kind of that attitude, which is great, because today, honestly, you don't hear a lot of that. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, we do that every single week, and quite honestly, we don't hear that much. It feels like people feel more together type thing, than back then, you know? So
Yeah, I think everybody kind of had a chip on their shoulder back then, and everybody felt like it was more of a competition, but it's like we can all eat, so
yeah.
might as well just have the camaraderie and have the good times and try to enjoy it, because being on the road isn't easy and it's not for everybody. And if you're one of the guys that like makes it shittier or harder on people
yeah.
to be on the road, like fuck you. I was one of those guys for a little while, so I understand. I just not anymore, but but things have changed a little bit. So yeah, I think like I was definitely one of those guys that definitely had a chip on my shoulder. And while like, being nice and cordial, but when you're kind of in a place that you don't want to be, or you're not happy, or you're not having a great time, it gets hard when you're doing the same thing every day and you're around the same people every day to kind of be that friendly, happy guy. And I think that things have changed now, because that was touring back in like 2008, 2009, when gas was over $4 a gallon and inflation wasn't what it was. So it was so much more expensive. And I think it was just way tougher to be on the road back then. And now I think deathcore bands are, for the most part, I don't know so much about like entry level beginning deathcore bands, but people are doing a little bit better. They're making a little bit more money. There's a better program out there. And I think, not to excuse myself for being like an asshole on the road or whatever, but it's already too hard. And yeah, I don't know, being pleasurable, being somebody that you can, I don't know, have fun with and be like open and happy with, it makes it so much better. And that's what I said that with the Thyre guys. It was, if I would have joined any band, I would have joined that band. Like those guys are like my brothers forever. Marshy, Sean, Lee, even Jesse did the like latest tour I did with them on drums. But Kevy's like one of my boys. We talk about weightlifting and shit all the time. But yeah, I mean, I love those guys so much. Even CJ, like after I did my stints with them and CJ was back in the band, I would travel, if they weren't coming to Vegas, I would travel to California just to go hang out with them. And me and CJ ended up hanging out a lot
Yeah.
of the time. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It's cool to hear that, because as you said, I cannot even imagine how stressed I would have. Like, I know you had experience, I know you had like a name in the scene and stuff like that. It's not like if you would come out of nowhere. I'm sure a lot of people were actually happy and surprised to see you on the freaking stage with them, you know? Like, I'm sure there was like a lot of people who, for them, it was kind of a crossover thing happening. Like, oh my God, the art is sick. I love, Nick and stuff like that. So I'm sure you had a lot of amazing, but I'm trying to put myself in your place, and just like, you're about to go on a stage and it's the first time, and there's like 4,000, like, I'm just trying to imagine, and you have to perform, and these people are not there to see like a local band, they're there to see freaking Dirt as Murder. Like, that's the show, like people are waiting for that. So I'm trying to just like imagine that. It's insane.
Basically, I was you know playing this first show to 4,000 people, and it was just so nerve-wracking, because I'm like, am I going to remember the songs? Am I going to like do good enough? Like, are the fans going to love me? Are they going to hate me? Whatever. And we started this kind of, I don't know, like a routine for every show where we would do a shot to kind of loosen up the nerves a little bit and get off and go on stage and kind of be relaxed and be happy and have a good time. And it ended up becoming, I don't want to say like full blown alcoholism, but by the end of the second tour, we were crushing like 2 bottles of Jameson a night and like just really getting after it. I mean, in the best way, you know, like having a good time, not kind of just being piss drunk, but like, you know, partying, having a blast. There was a little bit of awkwardness because, you know, like you're performing something for the first time. Like, of course you might stumble here and there. But what was really kind of like the hardest part about that tour was also like one of the best parts of the tour was, you know, it was Parkway Drive and they were awesome and great dudes, but they had a monstrous backline. And so there were like video comments, like, of course, like, you know, I'm going to troll myself and like look at the video comments after I just performed my first set, you know, to 4,000 people. But basically the space that I had on the stage was so small that I had like less than a foot's width between the front of the kick drum. So like front of the kick drum here, drummer's back this way. Yeah. And then I don't know, front like vocal monitor, my monitor in front of the. And so I got big feet. I'm 6'4". And I couldn't even fit my foot fitting straight in between that monitor and the kick drum on most nights of the tour. And so it was like, I was awkward already because I was, you know, not fully comfortable with the songs for the first few shows, not comfortable with the guys in the band, not comfortable with the audience or anything. And here I am standing, being awkward, you know, in front of everybody. But then I can't even move around because I can't even have my foot facing the audience. So I'm kind of turned like at an angle a little bit, can barely move around. And there was like comments that are like, this guy doesn't look comfortable. This guy doesn't move around. And it's like, well, and there's your explanation.
For context too, you're a guy that moves around quite a bit on stage. Like typically, like you full body bang and the whole thing. It's not like you're not that tame of a vocalist normally. So you must have felt pretty cooped up in that kind of scenario.
It was rough. And I think like eventually, you know, after about a week of shows with them or whatever, I felt pretty natural and like in my element for sure. But the first few were like extra rough because it was like so little space. And then also I'm awkward. So yeah, that's where that story was going.
I'm sure it was a fit though, because I'm trying to imagine like your voice, like it's very fitting with what Dyer was doing. Like we're talking about powerful voices, right? Like I mean, I think CJ's part of like these kinds of like powerful.
Look, we were talking earlier about kind of morphing, kind of adapting vocals to a certain thing. I think you did an incredible job of sounding like CJ, like CJ, like. Because it was a bit different than your typical sound, and yes, like the power is there and all that, but I think the tonality and everything, you nailed that. Which I
different style. Yeah, it was still a different style, but
and you know what? Doing those tours with them actually helped me kind of curate my own vocal style too. So I was able to take away from my time with iArt and kind of add it to my own repertoire. But I think that like the way that CJ did vocals was different than the way that I did vocals, and the way that he did vocals was easy for me to adapt to. And so I kind of just did that, tried to sound like their record, which I think fans would appreciate, and I think I did a pretty good job at, like you said.
Absolutely.
But then I also kind of would like mix in my own feel to it too, and kind of, you know, hit the punchlines a little different or add in little ad lib stuff here and there, whatever. But no, it was really fun. I loved touring with them. I don't want to say like I wish I would have joined or anything like that, because I definitely no offense to their new guy, but I definitely like thought it was the best thing for the band when CJ came back. And you know, it was my pleasure to fill in for him when he was taking care of his wife and kid and back home. But you know, where they're at now, that's their thing. And I mean,
Yeah, well, you
I
weren't
hope the best
looking
for
to
'em.
tour anyways, right? Like that just wasn't the.
Another band would have asked, and maybe you would have said like, I'm not sure. You probably said yes, and a big part of that was just like you were okay. Let's do it. You know, that's kind of
Yeah. Like I said earlier, several other deathcore bands, like big name deathcore bands, asked me to sing for them after my time with Thy Art.
Mhm.
And I mean, some people might say it's like subjective, but I would say it's objective. At the time, Thy Art was the biggest band in deathcore.
Oh, for sure.
And
yeah.
if I didn't want to sing for Thy Art,
Yeah.
I wouldn't wanted to sing for anybody else.
Do you remember how stoked and excited you were to first time performing Ring of Darkness, for example? I'm just curious if you remember that precise moment or not.
I wouldn't say Reign of Darkness because I struggled like a little bit with the timing of that song. So I wouldn't say I was never excited to play that. Like if they asked me to sing for them again, I'd be like, okay, Reign of Darkness, hell yeah. Like that's going to be awesome.
Okay.
Because I'm comfortable with it now. But there was a little timing issue. So I was actually kind of anxious to perform that song.
Okay.
But Pure Restraint of Hate, I could do that with my eyes closed, you know, like blindfolded on stage, whatever you want to say. Like I could sing you that song like a cappella without the instruments because I listened to that song so many times and there was no any issues with that. So I was so excited just to give it that one, yo, you know,
yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah,
I was so excited for that. But
it's a great song vocally, but it's a good live song too. I feel
exactly,
like, right?
super fun, lots of energy. But yeah, that album, I may screw up some of the titles, but Shadow of Eternal Sin was my favorite Thy Art Is Murder song too, and they played that song every night, and it was just so fun to rip through that every night. There's a lot of good ones on there. We played a lot of that album like when I toured with them. The second tour I did with them, we did a couple headlining shows in Russia. And we even brought out like Whore to a Chainsaw and
still one of my favorite.
I think Infinite Death and Whore to a Chainsaw. So yeah, it was fun getting to do those.
Wow.